Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. Because every house has to have a foundation, it was laid strongly on my heart to start this podcast with a daily series. I am using the book, The Bible in 52 Weeks, which you can buy for men or for women. I invite you to read along with me. We've moved on in our story today of Jacob's family to Genesis 37 through 41. And to start off, it's telling the dynamic here between his kids. And Joseph is not the last born, but he is the firstborn of Rachel. If we remember, that is who Jacob truly loves. And he's finally had 2 children with the original woman that he fell in love with. And Joseph, I think here, there's a lot of evidence that he's a pretty spoiled kid. Maybe not completely of his own accord. I would say that definitely the dynamics here in the family and the way that his father views him with favoritism is fueling that on. So Joseph tells on his brothers. We start out with him informing to their father about their shepherding. And so he's going to tattle. Jacob definitely prefers him. And there's so much favoritism that he gives him the famous multicolored tunic or cloak. Joseph has a dream. And Joseph and dreams are going to be very tied together. It becomes very critical in his life, this dream aspect, and it's definitely something that I want to write about and put on the blog, because there's dreaming all throughout this section of chapters. But Joseph has a dream where he is reigning over his brothers and even reigning over his parents. He has 2 dreams. So Jacob's not too cool with his behavior there either, and they all kind of assume that he is lashing out as a spoiled brat. Jacob sends him then to report on his brothers again as they are out with their herds in Shechem. And as they see him coming, they plot to kill him. Now, Reuben, the firstborn of the entire family, argues that we should not harm him. Let's just throw him into a pit. And they do. And Reuben goes off, evidently, to check on something. We aren't told why he's absent from the next conversation. But as Joseph is in the pit, the brothers are sitting around eating, and Judah sees a group of traders going by and says, hey, maybe we don't have to try to kill him and cover it up. Maybe we can profit from it. We should sell him. So the next trader group comes through, and these are Midianites, and they sell him. And when Reuben comes back, so Reuben wanted him in the pit because he was going to come back and get him out. This is interesting because I look at this from a human standpoint. Maybe Reuben thought he would be the hero here. He knows that their father prefers Joseph, and maybe Reuben thought he could get into Dad's good graces by bringing Joseph back unharmed and tell on everybody else. But no Joseph in the pit, and he freaks out. So the brothers decide to kill a goat, and they cover the colored tunic in the blood and take it back to their father and say, hey, is this your son's cloak? We don't know what happened, but we found this. And so Jacob assumes that Joseph is dead and moves on mourning in his life. Meanwhile, Joseph is sold to Potiphar, Pharaoh's captain of the bodyguard. And he now goes on in the next chapter. Judah sleeps with a Canaanite and has Onan and Shelah. both Er and Onan die. And there's a story about Judas sleeping on accident with a disguised Tamar, who was the original wife of Er and then the attempted wife of Onan. And the story of a birth order there that gets mixed up, ringing back towards all of the other birth order controversies to the beginning of Genesis. But we come back to Joseph in chapter 39, and he is in Potiphar's house, and he has been somehow lifted up. So here is somebody that was sold into slavery, but now he is running the entire household. He isn't just a butler where he is responsible for doing all the work. He's actually responsible as an advisor, as a head of household, so that Potiphar can go off and do work away from the home, which is a little different. He has had so much success because God is with him. Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him, and he rejects her. He keeps his honor, and he gets in trouble because Potiphar believes his wife, and he winds up now in jail. So in jail, in chapter 40, he runs into the cupbearer and the baker of Pharaoh, who are currently in trouble because the Pharaoh's just mad at them. But they have dreams, and Joseph interprets them correctly, and one of them dies and one of them lives, and this fulfills what Joseph says. Unfortunately, the one that lives had promised Joseph that if his interpretation came true, that he would tell Pharaoh about Joseph, but he doesn't. And 2 years pass. Joseph is in jail for 2 years. Again, here he is, a slave that was sold into the community. He is not part of the Egyptian power structure or culture. And he is so revered in the jail that he's basically running everything in the jail. Nothing happens except for Joseph's input. Well, finally, Pharaoh has this dream, 2 dreams, about the cows and the grain, and nobody can interpret it. And again, these dreams are fascinating to me, but they are what revolves around Joseph's life. The servant finally remembers Joseph in jail and says, "Hey, Pharaoh, I know somebody that can maybe interpret this for you." And they call Joseph, and he comes and interprets and winds up as the head of all of Egypt. He is historically, we have seen this. There are 2 or 3 people in the historical record of Egypt that rose to this level. Usually it was because a pharaoh was a very young man and needed guidance. But here, Joseph is one of these folks that was raised up so high that they had even more power than the pharaoh. They just didn't have the throne. And Joseph is an outsider to do this. I think what really kind of struck me as I sat with this was that here we have Joseph, who is on a path of sibling rivalry. He's being put into positions where it's encouraging the worst of him. When a parent preferences you over the other kids, you may not like it. It puts you in a bad position. It makes you the bad guy even though you don't intend to be. But it looks to me as though we are being shown that Joseph is kind of reveling in this. He's taking pleasure in his role. And had he stayed in his family, his arc surely would have been very different. But his personal arc, his personality and his character would not have taken the role in the end that he did. I think he would have gone the way of emotional damage and what happens to you when you behave poorly for so long. But fortunately for him, he gets sold into slavery, and he gets away from that family dynamic, and he's he's forced to make a choice. And the choice I think he makes is the one that we have available to us every day. There is evil in the world. There are things that are happening to you every day, that can happen to you every day, that makes your life hard, that is unfair, that doesn't seem like it's all good for you. And right existing at the same time is God's kingdom. So in essence, we have evil of a world that is broken and fallen, existing side by side with God's kingdom or God's world. And I think for us, this is an amazing illustration of the fact that we can choose. We get to choose which world we're living in. So in other words, Joseph could have come out of that broken family dynamic. He could have been very resentful that his brothers threw him in a pit and sold him. He could have been resentful that he was a slave. He could have felt like he was a victim, being thrown into jail. He had every right to dwell on all of the unfairness and all of the evil and all of the bad. But it's really clear that Joseph chooses to live in God's world instead. And he focuses on God, and we see over and over again that Joseph is successful because of God, because God is with him. For God to be with us, God's always here. So for God to be with us, we have to draw close to him. So Joseph has clearly taken this downturn in his fortunes, and he has drawn near to God, and he has decided to live in God's world in the midst of all of the confusion and the loss and the pain and all the things that he could rightly have claimed in his victimhood. And you can see the difference in his life. You can see how that bore out. He was lifted up out of the slavery. He was lifted up out of jail. He became the most powerful person in Egypt, ruling over all and saving everybody. And in the end, saving everybody, it says in the world, and there are arguments over how far this famine reached. There are archaeological evidences now that kind of work against each other, but let's say the entire world was coming for grain, because Joseph chose to draw near to God, because Joseph chose to live in God's world. And I think we can do this for the health of our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health. We can choose to own the bad. We can live in the broken, evil, downfall world, Satan's world, or we can live in God's world. We can draw near to God. It's the same space. We're walking through the same space, but it's all in who we're identifying with as we walk through those spaces. And obviously, in Joseph's story, we can see that one gives us the victory, and the other is not going to lead to a successful life. Thanks so much for being here, and I pray that God blesses you today and he brings you back here tomorrow. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.